Fire it up. Just do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. You like to?
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative.
You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah.
11 got it. Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark, and I'm finally back home after a week in Florida full of baseball and NASCAR and beach and all sorts of fun. Not quite relaxed because I just got back this afternoon, but we've got NASCAR to watch. And we had NASCAR today in Chicago at the street course without any rain, finally. And looks like tomorrow should be about the same. So hopefully they can get this thing in before nightfall, and we can enjoy 75 laps at the Chicago street course. Today's Xfinity race was quite exciting. It was great to watch the battle between SVG and Larson, and then some people that were a little unexpected. Jesse Love making quite a run at the front. Austin Hill also. So it was great to see all the competition up front. There was definitely some passing zones. The cream did kind of rise to the top there at the end, and SVG is now the, I guess, proverbial king of Chicago. He definitely is good there, to say the least. But he's really good at road courses. So, I mean, other than the penalty at Circuits of the America, he would have nothing but top 2 finishes at all of his road course starts in between Cup and Xfinity. So quite exciting to see, and it'll be fun to watch SVG along with the other road course, street course guys winging around the streets of Chicago tomorrow. So before much further ado, let's go back in time a little bit and take a look at Nashville. Oh, Nashville. I think it was kind of a broken record at the end. 5 green-white checkered restarts to finish off this race. It became a little bit silly, but at the end, I can't complain. At one point, I got a text from one of the viewers saying, "Hey, dude, you're in first place." I was like an hour and a half behind on the race because I was picking up people at airports and all sorts of stuff while I was in Florida, so I was behind watching the race. And I got the text while I was finishing watching the race. We hadn't gotten to the green white checkers, and they're like, "You're in first place in the Chrome Horn." I was like, "Oh my! I hope that sticks." It didn't quite stick, but I still ended up finishing, I think, 16th in the Chrome Horn, which ended up being quite a nice payday. We'll get to that in 1 second. Optimal lineups from Nashville after 5 green-white checkers. And I'm kind of glad it happened because I went back and looked at the running order with 2 laps to go when the caution came out. My day, it's hard to say because you never know who would have been the cheaper value picks, but most of my picks were the high-end picks that everybody else had, and it looked like Austin Dillon may have been one of the cheaper picks, and I didn't have much of Austin Dillon. Now, Austin Dillon ended up finishing really poorly in this race, but either way, I still ended up, at the end of the day, and I guess that's what kind of counts, winning some money. So that always helps. Hopefully everybody else out there had the same luck and opportunity as I did, and maybe somebody took home the big bag. But either way, we had $6,900, and I remember texting Matt, Family Guy, about this. That a lot of my lineups that I was pulling together still had I mean, some of them had like $2,400 left over, and I'm like, I don't mind leaving money on the table, but God, that just seems like a lot. Well, the optimal lineup for this race was $6,900 still left on the table. I mean, the highest priced person was Ryan Blaney at $9,300. That's insane. Zane Smith, who we did call out on the show last week as being a potential back runner to pick. So I'm thinking our little chart that we've been running there might be something to it. Other than this week, I can't make heads or tail out of it. So, but Joey Logano, Zane Smith, Ryan Blaney, Daniel Hemrick, Ryan Preece, and Tyler Reddick all finishing in the top 10 and finishing in the optimal lineup. Quite crazy. No dominators in the optimal lineup. Denny Hamlin would have been been a dominator for that race if he had not fallen back to 12th. Either way, still a really, really positive day last week. I mean, and I guess sometimes drama's good, but it still was just kind of like, can we just finish this darn race already? We're 31 laps past due. Either way, our optimal lineup challenge after 18 races. Actually, I guess after 19 races. I need to change that. There's my mistake for the week. Brad K, Tyler Reddick, both with 7, so it's knotted up nice and tight at the top. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, right on their heels with 6. Noah Gragson and Ty Gibbs with 5. So anybody's championship to win, at least in the optimal lineup championship that I run. Not that I give them any prizes or anything. But hey, if you're just now joining in, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and hit me up in the chat. Who do you think may win this race? Will it be Shane Van Gisbergen? Or will it be Kyle Larson? Or somebody else? Who knows? Let me know in the chat. Who do you like for the race tomorrow? All right, so here is my my winning lineup. I ended up winning $600 in the Chrome Horn contest out of pure luck in a lot of ways. I mean, Joey Logano was was not good at all during the race until the last 4 laps. Tyler Reddick was not bad. Ryan Blaney was Denny Hamlin was definitely a dominator, even though he didn't finish the optimal lineup. But the highest in the Chrome Horn, this was the winning $10,000 lineup over here to the left. So in the if you saw in the previous page, the optimal lineup total points was 400. So everybody left a lot of points on the table. Nobody had the optimal lineup, and that happens most weeks. Very few times do we actually see the optimal lineup ever really get hit. All right, when we looked at our practice rankings from last week, and I have a little bit of a different take on practice for this week. We'll see how I'm kind of digging into practice a little bit differently. But since I was still doing this last week, here's kind of where everybody turned up. And, I mean, honestly, it just got so topsy-turvy. It's really hard to kind of tell if practice speeds really did anything, because we ended up almost kind of like a Daytona or Talladega with just complete chaos at the end. What's up, Wyatt? How you doing tonight? Looking forward to this race. I'm high on SVG. You're going to be high on SVG, and my guess, he's probably going to be 70% owned. So it's one of those, you're either damned if you do, damned if you don't type scenarios. I mean, if you're running large lineup scales, I mean, honestly, you're probably going to need to run him 50% at least. Because if he does really well, 50% of your lineups will do well. If he does poorly, the 70% that had him won't have great lineups, and you're 50%. So you're kind of fading off a little bit, but you're still really heavy on him. It's kind of how I'm probably going to run SVG. Along probably with Kyle Larson. I probably will have quite a bit of ownership with both of them, but I highly expect both of them. I expect SVG to be well over 50%, and I expect Kyle Larson probably to be in the 35 to 40% range. Is kind of my the way I'm kind of thinking about it. So I may end up about even with Kyle Larson. But the slowest guys in practice pretty much still showed up being the slowest guys at the finish. They really didn't finish too much further off from where they practiced, other than Austin Dillon fell back there towards the end. But before that, he was running in 11th before the last incident with Austin Cindric came out. So that's that. The cheap guys, we kind of highlighted Zane Smith and Daniel Hemrick, and it kind of paid off. Even though there really wasn't a whole lot, but it was one of the few people who had a further back starting spot than what they practiced. And Zane kind of was the only one who was a real apparent one, but Daniel Hemrick was the other. And, of course, Chad Fincham had no interest, and that pretty much showed true. Austin Dillon, like I said, he was running in 11th with 2 laps to go and ended up in the middle of all the chaos and ended up finishing last in Draftkings points. So, kind of crazy. It was a nutty race. All right. Chicago street course for the second year in a row. My guess is they might do this again next year. I'm about 60% yes, 40% no. Where this race ends up, we're not real sure, but I'm hearing that the new schedule should be out in about a week to 2 weeks, is kind of what I heard on Door Bumper Clear. So they're very, very close to having finalized. Mexico City has not been finalized, but that's supposed to be on the schedule. So I don't know if, that would be really weird if we kind of took our 4th of July race and went to Mexico. But it's NASCAR. They like to do weird stuff all the time. So who knows? All right, here is the track layout for Chicago. The front yard of Chicago, as they call it. This is a road course / street course type. It is 2.2 miles in length, 12 turns in total. No real banking to speak of in any of the turns. It's very flat. The race length is 75 laps. Last year was 100. So keep in mind, this is 25 laps shorter than the scheduled distance last year. But remember, they only did 78 laps last year. So about the same amount of laps as they had last year. Dominator points, really, we are not concerned about Dominator points. 52.5. But we're really not ever really that concerned about Dominator points anyways when we go to road courses. It's much, much more imperative to find the guys that are going to finish in the top 10 and find that needle in a haystack of the place differential guys that are going to get us the most points. So those are the 2 real keys to the DraftKings lineups this week. Track comparisons, there is nothing comparable to this track. We don't race on any other street courses. It's really narrow. You've got walls on all sides. If you screw up, you're pretty much guaranteed to hit a wall. Where at Sonoma, you screw up, you're going to end up in the middle of grass or a sand pit. So there is no real comparison when it comes to any other road course other than we turn right and left at both. That's about the only comparison to these, and it's flat. But optimal lineups from last year's Chicago street course race. Once again, it was a monsoon. It rained. They ran rain tires, I think, for almost all the race. So, yeah, it was just, it was nutty. Justin Haley from 37th to 2nd, Chase Elliott from 26th to 3rd, Austin Cindric from 31st to 6th. But this is kind of showing that we had 5 people who had place differential. We did have one dominator, being Justin Haley, which sounds strange. But it happened. But we really don't, other than SVG or Kyle Larson, we're targeting them as much for finishing position as we are for dominator points. It's definitely not what I'm targeting them for. I'm targeting them to finish well. But we can kind of look at the same thing. Indy Road Course was only 82 laps last year. I mean, even with Michael McDowell leading 54 of the 82 laps, he only had 62 total points. Where Justin Haley up here, yeah, he led 23 laps, but he went from 37th to second, got 84 points. So 22 points more, and it's all based on place differential. I mean, Michael McDowell led more laps than Justin Haley did, but Justin Haley outscored him. Now, they're two different races, but they're still about the same amount of laps that were run. So that's what I'm really talking about, is because we are so short on laps that, and that's where dominator points come from, are laps led and fast laps. Charlotte Road Course was 109 laps and Sonoma was 110, so a little bit more place different or more dominator potential. But when you only have 46 laps led at Charlotte and 32 laps led at Sonoma, yeah, they qualified because they led 30% of the race, but it really doesn't fall into a true dominator fashion, at least points wise. But they're all place differentials. I mean, 5 place differentials here. We had 2 at Charlotte. It was much more of a finishing position race. We go back to Chicago and Indy. We had only 1 place differential, but 4 finishing positions. In Chicago last year, 5 and 4. So, kind of gives you an idea of what we're kind of looking for. If we're looking at where the majority of points came from compared to starting positions, we'll kind of look at our total road course averages, and 2.8 or what is that, 5.6 points come from the starting in the top 10. So it's kind of, you start up front, stay up front. And then it's the kind of needle in the haystack, and it's really 11 through 20 that seems to be kind of the next sweet spot. And then 21 through 30. We only are going to target 1 or 2 drivers that are coming from 31st or worse. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're kind of looking at. You know, down here, starting 31st through 40th, I mean, AJ Allmendinger actually comes in completely ranked at number 1, but he is AJ Allmendinger, the road course ringer. He's not a 37th place driver. AJ's a little off on his game, at least this year at road courses, but he's still much better than 2/3 of the field. So as long as he doesn't have a mechanical issue or get tangled up into somebody else's mess, and even that, I mean, he wrecked in the Xfinity race today and still ended up with a decent finish. So coming from 37th, he's going to be another one that'll be highly targeted. So I see a lot of people probably, when the percentages come out, I think AJ's probably going to be 3rd or 4th most owned driver, next to Shane and Kyle Larson. But Chase Elliott, coming from that 11 through 20 spot, is in a great position for a little bit of place differential. William Byron coming from 27th. Now, William Byron does have to start at the rear of the field, but he will be credited with a 27th place starting spot. So, yeah, he's going to lose about 10 spots, but William Byron's easily good enough in road courses to easily get up there. Martin Truex Jr. also is really good at road courses, and so is Austin Cindric. So definitely those 3 could be targeted. Starting 6 through 10, Christopher Bell's pretty good. Alex Bowman was really fast in practice, so that's somebody we could definitely target. And realistically, anybody that's starting in this top 5 are all easily to be targeted. What's up, family man? What's up, Matt? I'm going to say Kyle Larson wins the race. I can also see him and SVG racing each other really hard, and they wreck each other with these narrow quarters, someone random wins. Yes, I would. That is very much a possibility, Matt. But after watching the Xfinity race today, there was a lot of give and take and a lot of really clean, hard racing between Kyle Larson and SVG. I mean, at one point, SVG got around Kyle Larson and actually stuck his hand out the window and gave him a thumbs up of like, hey, I appreciate you racing me clean. And Kyle Larson, after the race, said, it was so much fun racing with SVG. He raced me clean. I raced him clean. It was just a really fun race. It was one of the few times that, Kyle Larson didn't win the race, and he seemed really enjoy going out and racing. So that is something to definitely keep in mind. And they're both, I mean, Kyle Larson's one of the best in the world, and SVG for this type of driving, street course, road course racing, probably is one of the best in this format with this style car. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch the two of them duel back and forth if that's where it kind of lands. And I think that possibility, we could be in store for a real show tomorrow. I'm pretty excited. Okay, so here's my new look at practice. And hopefully this makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but I also know my head is a little screwy. So bear with me here as we kind of go through this. So people who underperformed in qualifying compared to practice. And I've ranked them in points. So these are the top place differential from practice to qualifying. So I took practice first. So Zane Smith was 15th in fast laps for practice. He then goes and qualifies 30th. Well, that's 15 place differential from practice to qualifying. And this is kind of what we were targeting when we looked at the cheap options. And I still have the cheap options coming up, but I kind of wanted to go through this a little bit. AJ Allmendinger was 23rd in practice, and I think he had ended up hitting the wall during qualifying. I think that's what ended up happening, why he's starting 37th. So there's 14 possible place differentials if he just gets back up to where his practice speeds were. Family Man says, I think Larson has the edge in the Cup car, but just my opinion. No, I would agree with that. I mean, we saw Kyle beat SVG before the penalty. He beat him straight up at Coda, and then SVG beat him on the street course today. So, in the Cup car, it's going to be fun to watch. I'm more excited to watch the SVG Kyle Larson duel tomorrow as I am anything. So, but as I kind of look into here and look into this underperforming and qualifying, or maybe potentially overperforming in practice, and that's what I really don't know. But I put a point difference, I put a point per spot. So Zane Smith has 15, I guess, place differential between practice and qualifying. So I gave him 10 points. And what I'm going to do is I've got 3 different categories that I'm looking at. And the best performer in each category gets 10 points all the way down. And at the end, I'll show you what the point totals is. And maybe that particular person is somebody we might want to target when we're doing our Draftkings. Hopefully that all makes sense. And here are the guys that overperformed in qualifying or underperformed in practice. So Ryan Preece had a fast lap. His fast lap was 33rd. His qualified lap is 29th, so he had a -4. Christopher Bell from 13 to 7, Michael Medell from 9 to 3. So this is kind of, I didn't give these guys any points for this. It's just more of a, hey, here who potentially did bad in practice but did good in qualifying. So they're starting further up than they practiced. So the thought process, they might fall back because they bumped up tire pressures or did something, but maybe they just fixed their car enough, at least for one lap. I don't know. We're going to see how this goes. It was just something I kind of thought about when I was in Florida and was like, this could be something interesting to kind of how we figure out differences between some of these drivers. So this is the 5-lap average. So when we look at the 5-lap average and where they placed in the 5-lap average. So Austin Hill was 11th in 5-lap average, but he qualified 34th. Well, that's 23 potential place differential between the 5-lap average and where he qualified. AJ 18 to 37. Denny Hamlin from 2nd to 11th was 9th. Well, so I took that place differential and put it into the points. So Austin Hill gets 11 points, AJ gets 9 points, and so on. And here are the slowest ones, so in case we're interested in wondering. Now, Brad K had an issue. That's why he's starting towards... Well, he qualified 11th, and he's got to go to a backup car. He's got to have some repairs done. Either way. So that's the 5-lap average points. Then I just took straight up fast laps. Who were the fastest? And this actually should be, this is a mistake. This should be 10, 9, 8, 7, so on. So mess that up. This just, when I did the chart, I did it 10, 9, 8, 7, so on. But Kyle Larson was fastest in practice. SVG was 2nd. Ty Gibbs was 3rd. So, Ty Gibbs practiced in 3rd and starting 24th. Is that correct? Did I screw that up? I don't know if I screwed that up or not. Hold on. That doesn't sound right. I think that's backwards. I think I screwed that up. What is... Yeah, Ty Gibbs is starting 2nd. And his practice speed was 3rd. Yeah, so this is not right. My bad. Skip all of that. All right. Either way, here is the number game. I'll fix that later. It'll be right for next week. The number game. AJ Allmendinger has 18 total points. Austin Hill has 18 total points. And here is their price when we're looking at DraftKings. So Austin Hill could be somebody we could target at $5,800. Austin Hill also ran today's Xfinity race pretty well. He fell back a little bit at the end of the race, but he still ended up having a fairly good race. And Austin Hill is a pretty good road course racer. I don't think he's a Kyle Larson, a Chase Elliott, and those types of guys. But starting 34th, I don't think he's... As long as he keeps his car clean, he's not a 34th. He has struggled in the Cup car so far. Zane Smith, Josh Berry. These are guys that I'm not going to target real heavily. Now, I might target Chase Elliott pretty heavily. But Josh Berry struggled in practice, and he struggled a little bit in qualifying. But he still ended up with 13 total points. So, it's just kind of interesting to because it's kind of shooting in the dark when we get past, the top 10 fastest drivers. It's like, all right, now who do I take? And who's going to fit in my lineups? Even Ty Gibbs fits into the model. So, but these might be the ones up top that we kind of look at targeting. Why did Ty Gibbs show up there? He's not in any of these. Yeah, I've screwed something up. Yeah, this page is not right. Practice speeds are right, but the starting spots are not right. Sorry. But I do know we can look at here. Austin Hill, AJ Allmendinger were the 5-lap guys. Zane Smith, AJ, Austin were all the 5 single-lap guys. So those are the ones I think missed qualifying that were practicing better. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't know. It makes sense in my head. And then, of course, the best value page that I do like a lot. But the interesting thing here for the cheapest guys, Andrew says, I'm leaning Larson. Bet him 4-1 before it gets down lower. 4-1. I'm not sure Larson goes much lower than 4-1. He might go 3-1. Oh, I didn't fix the bottom scroller. Oh well. Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. I was up at 5:30 this morning to get on a flight to come back from Florida. Busy weeks. Literally from $5,700 cheaper, it is just scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's just awful. Balicki is awful. He also missed inspection 3 times, so he's got to do a pass-through penalty. So I wasn't really high on him anyways, and he's 5 seconds slower than everybody else. So Balicki is kind of the Chad Fincham from last week. I don't think he makes it very long in this race. Daniel Hemrick practiced and qualified in 35th. Kazgrala. Out of all these guys, John Hunter Nemechek would be potentially interesting, but I think he's starting too far forward. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is not a road course driver. Ryan Preece is definitely not a road course guy. John Hunter is, but I think this is his ceiling. I think he's already starting at his ceiling. Austin Dillon has every once in a blue moon had a decent road course. Harrison Burton got lucky one time at Indy. Kazgrala, maybe he kind of got lucky at Daytona when he was driving for Austin Dillon, who was out with COVID. Daniel Hemrick is fair, but his practice and qualifying speeds are not great. So literally the bottom of the barrel cheap guys, it literally is going to be a needle in a haystack. Somebody from in here is going to have to help our top side high-end priced guys. It's just it's the nature of the beast. Maybe Austin Dillon, but I think that's his ceiling. Kazgrala is the only one that really kind of intrigues me, because Kazgrala does come from a road course background, and that's really, but we could also see an absolute cluster this year. The course is so tight that literally last year we saw a couple guys get off course, block the track, and the next thing you know, you got a parking lot. Now, does that mean they're going to end up all wrecking out of the race? Probably not. They'll be able to continue on, but probably not contend for wins. Andrew says all the strategies tomorrow is going to make it interesting. Oh yeah, the lineups are going to differentiate a lot, and everybody's priced fairly well. You can easily fit 3 of the high priced guys in, and 1 or 2 middle guys, and then you're kind of stuck going, okay, which one of these guys potentially goes in? And that's when I kind of started looking back at this stuff. 5800 Austin Hill is a potential. Zane Smith is pretty good. He's won a Coda twice in the Truck Series. He's at 6400. Josh Berry concerns me a little bit, but 7200 for Chase Briscoe, maybe. But I think you still have to find somebody cheaper than 7200 to fill out your roster. So I'm probably going to target the Austin Hill play. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll continue to clean it up and work on it, make sure I've got all the stuff right for next week. But that's kind of where I'm leading, is to kind of do this point battle total to see who kind of comes out and see if that ends up making any sense out of practice speeds. I don't know. I just keep playing with it, and I keep putting it out there to you guys, and you guys can either take it or leave it. It's free, so don't kill the messenger. Okay, Kyle Larson. Let's get into our driver by driver breakdown. Let's kind of see what we've got here. So since we've only run Chicago once, and it was a rain-filled race, wet tires pretty much the entire race, all this data from last year's race kind of gets thrown out the window anyways. And like I said earlier, the only real comparison is we go right and left at Chicago, just like we do Indy, Coda, Watkins Glen, and Roval. So that's why I kind of put these in. You could easily substitute Sonoma for the Glen, or you can mix and max all this. But these are the races I did. Because they're kind of high speed. They do have some passing zones. They're a little bit on the more technical side. We could easily have included Sonoma in this list, so it just is what it is. But Kyle Larson, 10,500, starting from the pole position, was first in practice and 4th in 5-lap consecutive average. Because they only have 20 minutes of practice and it takes a minute and a half to get around this place, that time gets eaten up pretty fast if you're looking to try to make any type of adjustments at all. So I think the most I saw was 12 laps run, and Kyle Larson did 10. So trying to find a 10 lap consecutive average, I'm not even sure anybody got there. So 5 lap average it is, and he was fourth. Now almost everybody except for Balicki did a 5 lap average, so we do have a pretty large sample size of that. And he was fourth in that 5 lap consecutive average. And out of these 5 road courses that we're comparing to, Kyle Larson has 1 win, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, and 5 top 20s, which is this spot here. A 42.8 Draftkings average, an 8.8 average finish, and he finished 4th at Chicago last year. Then down here is his total road course starts. He has 34 total road course starts with 4 wins, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, 25 top 20s, and a 14th place average finish out of those 34 total starts. So that's the full breakdown for Kyle Larson. I like Kyle Larson a lot. He was extremely fast in the Xfinity car earlier today. Now, the 2 cars are completely different, and I get it, but there still is a piece to the pie of you've got to be good at turning right and left, and Kyle Larson is just that. Only if they put dirt on this thing, he would stomp the field. Christopher Bell, next in line here at 10,200, starting in 7th. He was 13th in single lap and 16th in 5 lap consecutive average. I mean, Christopher Bell's not a bad road course racer, but it's... I think we're going to see a little bit of cooling from Christopher Bell, especially after last week and leading all those laps and then wrecking. Maybe this is where Christopher Bell kind of cools off for a little bit. That and he's not the biggest road course expert, so I will probably fade off of Christopher Bell. I think his ceiling is about where he's starting. So I think they're just other much better road course guys than Christopher Bell for this style racing. So I think he's starting a little bit too high for my liking. Not to say he's a full-on fade. I might have him 5 to 10%. Matt says the $8,000 range is going to be a dead zone with all the place differential in the 9,000 range. We could gain some leverage. I think going over on a couple of the $8,000 guys, Suarez, Chastain, Hamlin, are all great plays, in your opinion. Okay. Yeah, I mean we're not far off. We're 10,200. We're getting real close to the $9,000 and $8,000 range, and we can definitely take a look to see how that may play out. And I have not built any of my lineups yet, but that for I remember that probably plays pretty well. Suarez is definitely somebody we could definitely probably target. I just can't remember right offhand where he is starting. SVG, $10,000, starting in 5th. He was 2nd in single lap practice, 37th in his 5 lap consecutive average. With an asterisk, he did have to slow down because there was a incident, or something on his 5th lap, which definitely skewed everything quite differently. So there is a caveat to that 37th. Would not put much credence into that. He's way faster than that. He probably would have been 1st or 2nd. But his 3 starts in the Cup Series, he's got 1 win, 2 top 10s, 1 top 5, 10.7 average finish, and as we all know, he finished 1st in this race last year. I think Shane is going to be extremely heavily owned. So, like I said, 45 to 50% ownership probably is where I'm going to end up falling with SVG, because if you don't have him and he does really well, you're screwed. If you do have him and he does bad, you're right there with everybody else. So the only other caveat is to stay away from him and hope 70% of the field has him, and then you end up in the 30% bracket that didn't have him. But you could also ruin 30% of your lineups if you don't. So I don't know. It's one of those weird quandaries that you end up in this strange vortex of like, I don't really know. Tyler Reddick, who is really good at road course racing, Did only finish 28th in this race last year, but like I said, last year was a cluster. $9,800 starting in the 4th position. He was 8th in single lap, 7th in 5 lap. The Toyotas were all extremely fast. The 2 Chevys that seemed to be really, really good were the pre-mentioned Larson and SVG. And there's one more driver that we'll get to in a second that could be a little sneaky. But Tyler Reddick starting in 4th. I don't mind this play. I don't know. I mean, Tyler Reddick's probably, I mean, he is very good at road courses. 10.2 average finish, 12.0 average finish for his 22 total starts. That's pretty good. So Tyler Reddick could easily compete. And I don't have that car on the screen right now, but he is driving a Michael Jordan Chicago skyline background picture on his car. So there is that. So he might be a little bit of a hometown favorite. So keep that in mind. And he is driving one of Michael Jordan's cars. Chase Elliott, $9,600 starting in 18th. I mean, Chase Elliott's a good road course racer. I was going to say he's the best because, I mean, if you look at his total wins, he's got 7 total wins out of 31 total starts. But they're also all in the old gen car. He has not won a road course race in this next gen era. I don't know, he finished 3rd here, though. He's still getting good finishes. I mean, he's 6.8 average finish at the 5 races we're looking at. He was 7th in single lap, 14th in 5 lap consecutive average. I will still have some ownership because there is a decent amount of place differential with Chase Elliott, and this might be what Matt is talking about. Is this? You got a Chase Elliott at $9,600 starting in 18th, and then a William Byron who won COTA earlier this year, who has been. He also won Watkins Glen last year. All those sorts of things start to come into play. William Byron has a 12th place average finish and a 15.9 total average finish for over 28 total starts. Now, there is an asterisk. He did have a power steering issue or rear end issue or something where he had to replace something after tech. So he got to qualify, but he will have to drop to the rear. Now, he's already kind of over halfway to the rear anyways, and William Byron's good enough to at least get into the top 20. Can he get really far up? I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some place differential here, so I will definitely have some targets on him. He did come in ranked 2nd on my ranking system, so and that's a lot more on the place differential side of things. It weighs road courses very heavy for place differential, so William Byron falls into that group. Same thing with Martin Truex Jr. Here's where Matt's talking about. We're now talking about 3 guys that are all pretty good at road courses. I mean, Martin Truex Jr., until he ran out of gas at Sonoma earlier this year, probably was going to at least win or get 2nd place at Sonoma. So Martin's good. He did finish 32nd in this race last year, but he got taken out with all the wet weather issues and stuff. So, like I said, last year was just a cluster, and I'm not sure how much we could take into how well some of these people finished. Other than the fact that SVG won, but he literally came to the field like twice last year at this race. So he has also proven since then he's a really good road course racer. Martin Jr. 9,200 starting 24th. I mean, Matt's right. We've got a ton of guys in the 9,000 range, including AJ Allmendinger, the guy who used to be the road course ringer before SVG moved to the States. So I feel bad for AJ. He's still really good at road courses. He's definitely not 37th. I'm kind of putting him probably at about a 10, 11, 12th place type of finish if he can get up towards the front cleanly. He does have a tendency to be a little aggressive and push things a little bit too soon sometimes. That kind of happened in the Xfinity race today, and it almost cost him very dearly, but he was able to battle back and get up, I think, to 11th or 12th. But AJ Allmendinger starting in 37th. This is another one. He's going to be very heavily targeted because literally his nickname was the road course ringer. So I will have a decent amount of ownership with AJ, but as Matt was saying, yeah, the $9,000 range is packed full of guys that are starting 24th, 27th, 37th. So, Chris Buescher, who has a tendency to just plug away at top 10s at road courses. I mean, he's got a 7.8 average finish of the 5 tracks we're comparing to. He finished 10th in this race last year. His practice speeds were not that great, especially when we look at the RFK cars. I think Brad practiced a little bit faster than he did. Actually, I think he practiced a lot faster than he did. Brad definitely qualified better, but Brad has to go to the back. So when we get to Brad, we'll talk about that. And then we've got Joey Hand, I think, is driving the 60 car out of RFK Racing. And Joey didn't qualify or do that well. But Chris Buescher typically is known for being a solid top 10 style driver. So definitely have some ownership here. We could definitely target Chris Buescher because, as Matt was saying, a lot of ownership is going to go to one spot ahead of him with AJ Allmendinger starting in 37th. I mean, all it takes is one spin out in a corner, AJ gets collected in it, and AJ finishes 37th. So I don't mind playing some Chris Buescher here. He's very solid on road courses. And as we know, Michael McDowell won the Indy race last year. His average finishes don't show how well he runs at road courses. I mean, literally, he's got a win and a 7th, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, but a 16.2 average finish. Yeah, so his other 2 races are like last. So as long as Michael can keep his nose clean and he's starting up front, yeah, Michael McDowell he could easily be a top 10 driver. The problem is if you start in 3rd and you finish 9th, you lost 6 points. Well, when place differential's a pretty big deal, that kind of hurts. So, same thing with Ty Gibbs. I mean, Ty Gibbs is pretty good at road courses. I mean, out of all the track disciplines, his average finish on road courses is better than his finishes on ovals. He had a solid run in the Xfinity car today at Chicago Street Course. So, I mean, maybe Ty Gibbs hangs out if Matt was saying if SVG and Shane get to battling too hard and both wreck each other. Yeah, Ty Gibbs is somebody that could easily capitalize and get himself a win. And boy, would that throw all the point stuff into a tizzy. Same thing with Ross Chastain. I mean, I think Ross is kind of set up for 7th or 8th place type finish. Kind of what I'm thinking. He finished 22nd in this race last year. He's got a 12.2 average finish at the 5 road courses we're comparing to. 17.7 average finish at all road courses, starting in 14th. I mean, it kind of smells like a finish where you start. Maybe a slight improvement, but I don't know. I don't love the Ross Chastain play, and don't hate it either. So, Daniel Suarez was having a pretty good Xfinity race till he got tangled up with somebody today. Actually, another decent road course racer, if I remember correctly, on the last lap. But he was able to battle. I think started in like 31st in the Xfinity car, and then I think I saw him for a little bit in the top 10. Part of that was strategy, but Daniel also was able to kind of race his way up there. He's starting in 9th. He was fast in practice. He was 4th in single lap, 8th in 5 lap. He won Sonoma a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So definitely keep kind of Daniel on the radar. I'm not going to be super heavy on Daniel. I'm probably going to be like 15, max 20% with Daniel Suarez. Probably closer to 15. And I think that's probably where he's going to end up falling. So Denny Hamlin, Denny has struggled at road courses lately. Could this be the week where Denny Hamlin turns things around? Yeah, I don't know. This track really just does not fit Denny Hamlin's driving style at all. It's extremely tight. You've got to be precise, lap in and lap out. And not that Denny's not really good at ovals and can do that. He's just not that good of a road course racer. I mean, he's not a bad one. I mean, he's probably 17th, 18th out of all the drivers. I mean, 52 total starts on road courses. He's only got 1 win and 13 top fives. I will probably fade off of Denny a little bit. So, I mean, you want kind of maybe a potential sleeper, but that's a risky sleeper pick. I don't know. Yeah, Matt, I mean, this $8,000 range, we've got Denny, we've got Daniel Suarez starting a little bit higher up, Ross Chastain finishing where he starts, Ty Gibbs starting in second, I mean, potentially leads lap and wins, and maybe Michael McDowell does it. Yeah, I mean, I could see the argument, Matt, of targeting some of these guys because all the guys in the $9,000 range are going to be probably pretty heavily owned, and at that point, if you take a Kyle Larson and a SVG or a Tyler Reddick, you're gonna have to start to, if you take a $9,000 guy with all them, you're gonna have to skip right over the $8,000. So the $8,000 group probably will be not very owned, but I also don't see a whole lot of opportunity in this $8,000 range, to be perfectly honest. I'm not saying fade it off, but I'm also just saying I definitely don't love anybody in the $8,000 range, to say the least. Will I have some ownership on them? Sure, but probably not much more than 15% for any one of the drivers. I mean, Brian Blaney, not superb on road courses. I mean, he's probably a 20th best driver on road courses. His average finish is 15.4. 14.7 over his 32 total starts. 13 times. So a third of the time he's finishing in the top 10, starting in 17th. I mean, once again, this track is just so narrow and it's so precise. That's the other thing. I mean, starting in the 17th spot is a little bit kind of starting in the middle of the muck. I don't know. I mean, he's got Kyle Busch starting one spot behind him. Poor Kyle Busch, just absolutely. I mean, between him and Austin Dillon, the worst luck in NASCAR this year is RCR. Kyle Busch was finally going to have a top 5, maybe in a top 3 last weekend, until Austin Cindric and Noah Gragson decided to tangle with 2 laps to go, and then it just went downhill from there for Kyle, and he ended up not finishing the race again. This has to be a record of not finishing races for Kyle Busch. What a rough year. But once again, I haven't seen any indication that this boat is turning around anytime soon. So, I mean, I might have a little bit of ownership this week, but not much. I mean, maybe 5, max of 10% ownership with Kyle Busch. I mean, his practice speeds were 27th in single lap, 24th in 5 lap, and he qualifies 19th. All indications are he's going to finish where he starts. And even at $7,700, there's no value there. So, Joey Logano, our winner from last week, the slowest car won the race. Go figure. And he was one of the slowest cars. But that's probably why he still had gas in the tank. After, 108 laps, 110 laps, or something just silly. $7,600 starting in 32nd. I mean, there's a ton of place differential here because Joey's actually pretty decent at road courses. He's not phenomenal, but he's decent. He's definitely not 32nd. I mean, just as much as AJ's not a 37th place road course, Joey Logano's not a 32nd place road course. But I can also see the argument of other than last week in North Wilkesboro, Joe Logano has been sitting with the pigs, and he doesn't smell too good. Um, so Austin Cindric, his practice speeds were 22nd and 32nd, starting 21st. I mean, at least his average finishes are a little bit better than 21st, but I mean, unless we have some attrition, I don't. And Austin Cindric is able to stay away from the attrition. I'm not sure he gets a top 10 out of this deal. But at $7,500, is 12th place good enough? It's going to be real tight. That gets real interesting. So I will throw a few lineups with Austin Cindric out there, but we're probably looking at maybe max of 10%. So 4, maybe 5 lineups with Austin Cindric. I mean, and I don't really know until I get really into building some of the lineups, which will be tomorrow morning. I want to see if anybody else is going to the rear before I completely finalize. But a sneaky pick here could be potentially Alex Bowman. He was 5th in single lap practice, 1st in 5 lap consecutive average. He's got a pretty good average finish. I mean, even when he finishes at 37th, he still has a 13.8 average finish over the 5 races we're comparing to. Paul Moss, interesting. Logano finished P8 today in Haley Deegan's car. Yes, he did. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that race shop. Because if you believe that Joey Logano drove the same car that Haley Deegan was driving for the full season this year, I got a bridge to sell you. I've got 4 bridges to sell you. Because I guarantee there's no way that Joey Logano just jumped into a Haley Deegan prepared car. Now, absolutely, they changed the seat. Get it, because they're 2 different people. But I guarantee there was a little bit more engineering and a little bit more money and a little bit better shocks and a little bit better engine and a little bit better transmission that got thrown into that car because Joey Logano was running it. I guarantee that apples to apples, those cars were not the same as Haley Deegan was driving. Joey Logano's also got the money to bring to the table to get better equipment. Penske's also going to send over better equipment because they don't want their boy to go out and drive a dog car. That team can't afford a Joey Logano. That was something that came from Ford, that came from Penske. That was not apples to apples cars. Sorry. If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. So, Alex Bowman, 7,300, starting in 8th. I like this Alex Bowman play. I think he gets overlooked at 7,300. He was fast in practice. He's pretty good at road courses. But starting in 8th, it almost becomes no man's land. It's not really enough to get a place differential. It could potentially cost you a lot if he ends up finishing 16th, 18th, or 20th. This is kind of lining up, I think, to be a sneaky Alex Bowman type of day. And really, all you need Alex Bowman to do is go and finish 5th. Maybe have a couple of fast laps. Maybe get lucky and lead a lap or 2, kind of like Jesse Love did today. And that's kind of what I mean, Alex Bowman's also the king of top 10s this year. He just consistently just keeps going out and getting top 10s. So I don't mind the Alex Bowman play at all. So don't overlook Alex Bowman. Chase Briscoe? I mean, Chase Briscoe is not really known to be a superb road course racer, but he was 11th in single lap, 12th in 5 lap consecutive average, starting in 22nd. His average finishes are about where he starts, so I could easily see this being a race where he finishes 19th and he started 22nd, and he's a non-factor, at least in Draftkings world. He's already signed his deal to go to the 19 car. He's still gonna give it a shot for his guys to finish the season out strong. But if he ends up having a bad race, it's like, okay, whatever. I'm going to the 19 next year. don't love this play, don't hate this play. Practice speeds were okay. Brad Keselowski, $7,000. I know he is going to the rear for repairs to this car, and he overqualified and underpracticed. I'd much rather see overpractice and underqualified. Works better for Draftkings. The 28th in single lap, 15th in 10 lap consecutive average, and guess what? Brad Keselowski's not that good at road course racing. Has no wins out of his 44 total starts. And he's only had 7 top 5s out of 44. He's just not a good road course racer. So now that he's got to go to the rear, he's got a win under his belt. If he backs into a decent finish, it was because it was strategy. And I could easily see, because he's got the win in his back pocket, they could throw whatever strategies they want. He's not going a lap down. Yeah, I mean, it's a minute and a half to get around this track, and it takes him, 10 seconds to change tires and 30 seconds max to get up and down pit road. So, yeah, not going a lap down. And that's why Justin Allgaier started a backup car that got wrecked in practice earlier this morning. They turn around the car, and he ends up finishing top 10. It was all strategy. He drove, I think, from 36 up to, I think it was about 30th, and he kind of maxed out. And then when the first caution came out, a lot of people stayed out, so he pitted. Then when the stage break happened, they flipped. Everybody up front, for the most part, came in and pitted. He jumped up into 14th, and then he got off strategy again and was able to get up into, it was 9th is where he ended up finishing. I mean, Brad potentially could do that, but Justin Allgaier is a better road course racer than Brad K is. Joey Hand, who is a road course expert. I mean, if he's a road course expert, then don't give up your day job, because you were slow in practice, 37th and 36, and this is not the first time he's been in a Cup car. He's got 7 total starts in the Cup Series, and he's only got 1 top 20. And he's a road course expert. I tell you, Joey, maybe you should just go do whatever form that you're doing. I don't know if he's doing GT3 or if he's doing IMSA or what he's doing, but it's not working well in NASCAR Cup world. 37th, 36th, 38th. I mean, maybe he gets through with some attrition and finishes 29th, but is that really enough at 6,900? I'd rather take a shot on Todd Gillen, who's actually not a great road course racer, but seems to understand the Cup car a little better. At $6,800, starting 26th. Don't love it. Don't hate it. Don't think there's a huge amount of upside with Todd Gillen, other than he's been overperforming this year, which is good for him. And, at this point next year, if he's still performing at this level, I would say that he's performing where he's supposed to be. But right now, for his history, he's overperforming so far this year, which is great. Good for him. Because he's pretty much going to be the leader at Front Row Motorsports next year with Michael McDowell leaving. So I probably won't have a whole lot of ownership with Todd Gillen. Same thing with Justin Haley. The only positive thing was he led something like 23 laps last year in this race. And a lot of that was strategy based. And he got lucky with some cautions falling where they did. And I mean, he ran well at this race, but it was a little bit fluky. Because when we look at his total body of work, he's got a 22.4 average finish on both the 5 tracks and the 21 total starts. So it's kind of starting where you finish type scenario. Now he's overperforming this year, so maybe he gets up to a 12th or 13th, which will be good, and that's 10 spots a place differential. And that might be enough at 6,700. So I could see playing some Justin Haley. I'm not going to be super heavy on Justin Haley. I'll be 10-15%. But oh yeah, by the way, last week I said Justin Haley was going to easily make it on the lead lap, and he was running close. He was 10th, I think, when that caution came out right at the end of the race, and then everything kind of got a little convoluted with all the 5 green flag, green white checkers that fell. So, but Justin Haley, I knew he would be in play last week, and he was, I think, 6% owned, 5% owned. Yeah, that was an awesome play. That definitely helped me win money last week. Carson Hocevar. Oh man, Carson. You know, when the guys at Door Bumper Clear sing your praises for weeks and weeks and weeks on how well you're doing, and you go out and start doing idiotic moves like you have, yeah, they threw you under the bus this week, buddy. So Carson Hocevar needs to fix whatever he's doing. But we're talking about Draftkings at Chicago this week. $6,600, starting in 13th. Honestly, I think he's starting too far up, and I don't foresee really a top 10 finish in his future. He's a decent road course guy, but he's probably 15th to 20th out of the field. Maybe 20 to 25th, honestly. He was a top 15, top 10 truck road course guy. Not sure that equates the same to the Cup car. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Carson Hocevar is starting at his ceiling, unless there's some major attrition that ends up happening and he's able to survive. But yeah, I don't. I think he's starting too far up. Eric Jones at $6,500, starting 25th. He was 36th and 34th in practice. Not good. 27.8 average finish. Legacy Motor Club is way underperforming so far this year. And starting 25th, I think you're starting too far up, Eric Jones. So I'm not sure I have a whole lot of interest. And it's going to be a real tough call with your teammate, who is actually had a really good practice. Zane Smith, who I did like last week also. I think that helped out my odds a little bit on winning money. 6,400 starting in 30th. I mean, Zane was pretty good in practice, and he's coming off of a podium finish last week. There's momentum there, and he needs to start turning this season around, and this would be a good spot for it. Out of the 5 races we're looking at road courses, he's got a 22nd place average finish. Out of the 4 total starts, a 25th place finish. Starting in 30th, he was 15th and 19th in practice. I don't mind taking some shots on Zane Smith. Little pricey, but I think he fits into the puzzle fairly well. Noah Gragson has just struggled in the Cup car on road courses, and honestly, he kind of struggled a little bit in the Xfinity cars on road courses. So Noah Gragson definitely has some room to grow when it comes to road course / street course racing. Starting 28th, I mean, take a few shots on it, sure, but I'm not sure. I think his ceiling might be 18th to 20th. More likely he's going to finish 22nd, 23rd. So I don't love the Noah Gragson play for this race. Bubba Wallace, 6,200. Talk about somebody who just absolutely 2 years ago was god awful at road course racing and literally could not get out of his own way. I don't know if Tyler Reddick has worked with him in the sim. I don't know if he's hired some driving coaches to help him work in sims. I don't know if he's moonlighting and going to Skip Barber down at VIR, or if he's going to Trackhouse Motorsports, which used to be the GoPro Motorsports, which was a little go-kart track, which is kind of a road course. I'm not sure what Bubba Wallace is doing, but his road course knowledge and ability has become much better this year. And I started to see a little bit of a turn last year, but I'm definitely starting to see much faster lap times, much faster practice times. Now he needs to get the finishes. Is this the week? I don't know. That's the tough part. He's starting almost a little too far up, in my personal opinion, but I'm also willing to take some shots on Bubba Wallace this week. He's driving number 1 a Michael Jordan car. He's driving a McDonald's backed car. McDonald's is headquartered in Chicago. Michael Jordan was the king of Chicago for a long time. Yeah, Bubba Wallace is very, very well liked in Chicago. So, kind of I wouldn't say it's a home track for him by any means, but he will be he'll have a home crowd advantage when it comes to this. So, I could see him having a decent race as long as he keeps it out of the barriers. But it's real risky starting in 6th for somebody who's still not proven to finish road courses well. Going out there and doing it is one thing, finishing them's a different. Corey LaJoie, he literally had, I don't know where he was in qualifying, but he was right there on top. Not on top, but he was right there on the cusp of getting to the next spot in. At least he was green on the little tracker, and then he just took one corner too hard and put the car into the wall. So he's got to go to a backup. He is starting officially in 20th, but will actually be starting in like 37th or 38th or 39th or 40th. Not real sure. But either way, screwed that car all up. And starting in 20th might be a little too far up. I think that's his ceiling for the race. I don't have a whole lot of interest there. I mean, at least Josh Berry screwed up during practice and had to go to a backup car. Starting in 36, but Josh is not a road course racer. Self-admitted not a road course racer. But is he as bad as 36? And will Childress end up getting him on a different strategy? All of those things will come into play. I don't think he's a 36th place. I think he's probably a 23rd through 26th place finish. That was 13 spots enough at $6,000? Maybe. So I wouldn't mind taking a few shots. I mean, he's got to go to the rear because of the damage repaired. But he's already starting from the rear. So no big deal there. So I wouldn't mind taking a few shots because his crew chief is willing to take risks on strategy. So this is all a strategy play. It's not that I think Josh Berry can actually race his way up into a top 20. And I think that actually would be kind of reaching. I think a 21st, 22nd, and you feel pretty good about your day. Austin Hill, starting 34th. He was 20th in single lap, 11th in 10-lap consecutive, or 5-lap consecutive average. Got a 27th place. Well, he finished 27th. Where was that? Coda? Earlier this year. But he was actually, I think, running top 15 when he had some issues. But I don't mind the Austin Hill play. And actually, when we kind of did our breakdown of who might be kind of some secret people to take, Austin Hill easily could fit into there. And at 5,800, we've got to take somebody down in this range. So Austin Hill might be one of our better bets. Congratulations to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He's finally a dad to a bouncing baby boy as of, I think it was July 4th, I think is when his son was born. So congratulations, Ricky. But he's starting 33rd. And I mean, he had a long week. Helping his wife with the delivering of the baby. Sure, he didn't have to do a whole lot other than hold her hand and tell her to be all right. Which I'm sure most of us have done. That's what we're supposed to do. But he's not a road course guy. 22nd place average finish over 38 total starts. Only one top 10. Starting in 33rd. I mean, his ceiling is probably 23rd to 26th. Starting in 33rd. I'm not sure that that's enough. But we could always play the I'm a new dad card, and maybe that gives you an extra bump of 4 spots, so maybe 19th. Ryan Preece, another one who just typically is not good at road course races. $5,600 starting in 29th. He was 33rd in single lap, 29th in 5-lap consecutive average, 19.8 average finish at the last 5 races we're comparing to, but 3 of those are top 20s. But I'm not sure 9 spots really gets it there. So don't love the Ryan Preece play. In fact, I don't think I love anything down here. I usually don't, but I really don't this week. I mean, I mean, John Hunter was fast in practice. But damn, it's way too scary when you've got a 25.5 average finish, no top 20s anywhere in the Cup Series, 31st place average finish, and you go out and way outkick your coverage in practice and qualifying. I don't have, out of everybody down here, I'm more scared about taking on John Hunter Nemechek than I am probably anybody else. I mean, Austin Dillon, pretty scary too. Starting 15th, 24th in single lap, 21st in 5 lap, 25.6 average finish, only 2 top 20s. Yeah, I don't know. I think starting 15th is starting too far up. I think he outkicked his coverage too. Harrison Burton ended up hitting the wall also. Starting in 31st, will have to go to the rear of the field. And his practice speeds were awful, and they've got to repair a damaged car. Nothing on here is... Yeah. Like I said, I don't like anybody down here. We're going to have to take somebody, though. Maybe Kazgrala. Maybe. He's starting 40th. But he's going to get pushed up a few spots because of some of these guys that are starting from the rear. Now, an AJ Allmendinger is going to pass him pretty quickly. Gotcha. Whatever. He has an average finish of 25.5 at the 5 road courses we're looking at. Now, he only raced on 2 of those, so that was probably Circuits of the America and Oval last year, maybe the Glen. I'm not sure. But 4 total starts in the Cup Series and a 20.3 average finish. Starting in 4th, I mean, his starting spot, you can't get any worse. So there's that. So maybe if you've got to take some shots at the bottom of the barrel, Kazgrala is probably the one to take shots with. I mean, Daniel Hemrick, no, I don't know. Maybe somebody you can use. I mean, maybe a Zane Smith, maybe a Kazgrala, maybe a little Daniel Hemrick at $5,100 starting from 35th. I mean, there are 4 spots that can beat you, or 5 spots that can beat you. I mean, you've got a 33rd place average finish over 2 of the 5 races, and 6 total starts. You've only got 1 top 10 with a 28.7. I mean, the problem is we've got to take somebody below $5,800. I think. I have not done the lineups, but I'll be shocked if you can work a Kyle Larson, an SVG, and 1 or 2 of those guys in the $9,000 range and not have to go to the basement. So, Josh Bilicki, I really do not have any interest in Josh Bilicki. Number 1, he's got to start from the rear of the field, and he's got to do a drive-through, pass-through penalty. Now, with a 1.5 lap, he's not going to go a lap down, other than the fact he was 5 seconds off the pace in practice. So, and he did not run a qualifying lap. All that being said, I think Josh Bilicki is the Chad Fincham from last week, and unless we have a major catastrophe at the very beginning of this race, Josh Bilicki will finish no better than 38th. All right, so guys that I really like coming from the rear: AJ Allmendinger, William Byron, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr. Now they will all four be probably decently owned. To finish this race well, SVG, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, all with the potential of finishing up front, staying up front, leading some laps, and having some fast laps. Joey Logano coming from 32nd is one of your best place differential plays. I like that. I do like that play. You could take probably some shots with Chris Buescher, Austin Cindric, maybe a Chase Briscoe. Guys that I'm real leery on, I think Royal Joy's starting too far up, plus he's got to get repairs. Eric Jones starting in 25th. Nope. I don't mind the Austin Hill play. So he did get down here in the question mark area. But I don't mind the Austin Hill play. Ryan Preece, Austin Dillon are both starting. Probably they're not going to finish any better than where they're starting. I mean, Ryan Preece could get to a 22nd. John Hunter starting in 12th is starting too far up. Kazgrala, you could take some shots. If you've got to go down to the basement, you could pull Kazgrala out of the basement and put him in. Daniel Hemrick is also another one. I could, if we've got to do some diving down here, you could pull a Kaz or a Daniel Hemrick. But I'm not interested in Harrison Burton. He's starting in 31st. I'm not sure he finishes any better there. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has baby brain. So there's that. So value, I mean, Brad's got to, starting in 10th, but he's got to go to the rear. Maybe some shots on Bubba Wallace. Maybe some shots on Josh Berry. Todd Gillen's not an awful play. Justin Haley's not an awful play. He's starting a little further up than I'd like. Zane Smith has got some momentum on his side, starting in 30th, and his practice speeds were pretty good. I don't mind that play. Noah scares me. Carson starting too far up. Up here in place differential, Joey Hans just, yeah. I don't think he understands the world of, if you need to move somebody, move them with the bumper type game. So yeah, I think Joey's a pretty good play from the rear. AJ, Byron, Truex, Chase Elliott, all good place differentials. Do you think we could see enough carnage for the $5,000 to come through? Maybe. The problem is most of the high impact areas on these walls are covered in tires. And with the carbon fiber body that the Cup cars are now using, they don't typically get completely torn up. You might have to go, yeah, I mean, even the guys that had just junked cars in Xfinity were able to continue on, and we've seen that with this Cup car that they're driving small tanks. Other than the tie rod ends, they don't tend to break very much. And that tie rod end is just so susceptible to breaking. I really wish they would fix that, but I'm not sure they can. I think it's just the part that is the part. Get a $5,000 to, I guess you'd say $5,000 to $5,800. Can they play? I mean, they're gonna have to. If not, you're not gonna be able to take the expensive guys, and they're not that expensive this week. But you're not gonna be able to play what you need to play without taking a $5,000. So I mean, it's gonna be literally find the lineup that works and literally just go down the list and just change that driver once. And the problem is that waste 20 of your lineups, or I mean like 10 of your lineups. But it's gonna have to play. I mean, it could easily be that. Let's see. It could easily be who's starting in 40th. Kaz Literally, Kaz goes and finishes 28th. Well, that's 12 place differential points plus the points that you get for finishing 28th, which I think is like 14 points. He ends up with like 26 to 28 points, which typically in most days, in most worlds, doesn't play. But let's go back up. I'll make you dizzy. Don't watch the screen. I'm going to scroll real fast. I always get kind of confused when I start doing this. We go back up here to our optimal lineup. So 6,300 was the cheapest. Might have to limit 10,000 to one driver to avoid going to the bottom. I mean, maybe. I mean, last year at the Roval, 10,002 was the most expensive driver, and the cheapest driver was 6,300, but we maxed out using 50,000. Not saying that you can't max out. It just percentage-wise doesn't play well when you max out your ownership. Down here, I mean, $10,000 for Kyle Busch, but then you had an Eric Jones at 5,900. But we also still had $2,300 left over, so you potentially could have come close to the optimal lineup by switching Eric Jones out. That was for Sonoma earlier this year. But as you see, it was almost all place differential. Last year, 5,800 for Justin Haley, who kind of surprised everybody. Maybe we have a surprise like a Justin Haley. I mean, I'm not negating Justin Haley can't do it again this year. It just kind of makes me a little bit nervous. Yeah, you just can't play a bunch of these guys in the higher price range. Now, where is it? Yeah, you'd have a tough. I mean, literally, what you really, if things play out fairly normal, we don't have any major incidents or issues, and we don't have a whole lot of attrition. It's going to be an SVG, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, Michael McDowell. He's got, and even, I mean, the top 5 are going to battle it out. Now, could we get, if we're trying to go cheaper, does that, if all 5 of them end up wiping each other out early, then it starts to play. But that, I mean, you're talking about taking out maybe 5 of the 8 best road course racers in the Cup Series. I mean, AJ's there, but he's seems to be a little bit struggling on road courses, or just struggling in general as of recent. I mean, Chase Elliott is one of the highest finishers that's currently active in the Cup Series. Martin Truex Jr. right there with him. William Byron, pretty good road course racer. And they're starting 27th, 24th, but they're 94 and 92. So, I mean, you can't go, you're not going to be able to target an SVG and or a Kyle Larson and a William Byron and a Martin Truex Jr. It gets real tough unless you go down to the Cosgrallas, the Austin Hills. Like the Austin Hill at 5,800 is probably the least expensive guy that I'll end up going moderately heavy on. So, hopefully that answers your question, Andrew. Not sure if it does or not, but either way, we're an hour and 26 in. Holy camole. That was a long episode. They've kind of gotten that way. I know. I ramble and ramble. But there's a lot of information. There's more information than I ever really want to think about when it comes to all this. And trying to... I mean, I got lucky last week. There is no if, and, or but. I don't think I finish... I definitely don't finish top 20 of the Chrome Horn without just a cluster of a race at the end. Just looking at who was running in the top 10 and the ownership at that point in time, yeah, I probably would have had a weekend last weekend. I ended up having a great weekend. Same thing could happen. Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I think you're 10,000 for one driver. Yeah, I don't really love pairing Kyle Larson and SVG together in a lineup, because I think they're the 2 most dominant cars. Well, only one of them can have a great race. Now, they're both going to end up finishing fairly well. And second place pays 42 points. You know, so if one of them finishes first and one of them finishes second, one's going to have 45 points, one's going to have 42 points. I mean, that's going to put you in the top 15 in the point getters, but I'm not sure how well putting them 2 together, because of how expensive they are. If there's, I don't know. I don't think I'll have very many lineups that have 2 guys from the top 5 together, except for in a small handful of lineups. Like, don't get me wrong, I'll probably run one lineup, max 2, with SVG and Kyle Larson together. It's just, if you think the 2 of them are going to battle first and second, you just have to run 2 different lineups that are the same, but just switching those 2 out. That's kind of how I do it. I'm going to have to hold my nose and play some of the bottom. Yeah, I mean, I think you are. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to show you the different practice speeds. Yeah, you can look at all sorts of things. I mean, I think Zane's a decent play. I mean, Kaz starting in 40th. Yeah, it doesn't smell very good, but he knows how to drive a road course. I mean, a Joey Hand, who is really good road course racer can't figure out this car. Yeah, it's literally gonna be throw a dart at it, and if it sticks and it works, yeah. I after looking at practice speeds and looking at everything else, I knew finding the cheap value play to play the guys that we think are going to run top 5 and top 10 was going to be really tough. In fact, I think I put in the description that it's going to be a needle in the haystack. It really is, and it's going to be somebody weird. It's not going to be Josh Bilicki. I know that the car's too slow. I mean, it could easily be a Daniel Hemrick. It could be a Cosgralla. It could be a Zane Smith, an Austin Hill. I'm trying to think of who back there I don't really like, other than let's see, cheap options from the rear. Bilicki, no. Hemrick, maybe. I mean, yeah. So maybe Harrison Burton gets lucky. Maybe a Ryan Preece gets lucky. The possibilities are just, I mean, Austin Hill's a better play. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a better play than Austin Dillon, John Hunter Nemechek, Ryan Preece play. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't feel good. I get you. Hold your nose and play it. So, but anyway, hey, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. I've been on here for an hour and a half now. I've blown through enough of the evening. And I'm a little tired. I got up early this morning. Drive back, and I need to set some lineups tomorrow and watch a fun Chicago race, because I think it's going to be another scorcher here in Richmond tomorrow. So if you're in the wake of all of the bad weather, or if you happen to be in southern Texas, watch out for that storm. Other than that, enjoy the race tomorrow. And we head, where are we racing next week? I'm so removed right now. It's not even funny. Where do we race week? There it is. Schedule. Where do we go next week? Oh, Pocono. Denny Hamlin's track. Or potentially Kyle Busch could finally turn his crazy ways around. Or we could see Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson take each other out of the race. Oh. Then before we go on the break, we go to Indy. That'll be fun. That's going to be a great race. I think the next gen car does really well at Indy. I think that's lining up to be a really, really cool race. All right. Either way, guys, I'm going to bed. See you guys next week for Pocono Breakdown and Chicago recap. But I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. We will talk to you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.